Vader going to be all right standing there for a while?
Oh, I think so. I
did a talk at Pinewood, and Vader and Stormtroopers from the UK were behind us, and all of a sudden Vader started going and a hand came out and propped him up.
Wow, it must get pretty warm in that suit over there.
Yeah.
So I've just gone downstairs to do a quick announcement and then we'll get started.
Right, are these on?
They are indeed, yeah. Yeah. I'll take that one.
Are you going to ask me some questions?
I am indeed, I am the host, yeah.
Well, then you're going to put it out to Q&A.
Yes. Yeah. Are you enjoying your day?
Yeah, it's
good
actually.
It's quite busy there now, so.
Yeah. Nice and steady sort of thing. Good. And it's not quite like the American ones, obviously.
No, I did San Diego Comic-Con this year and it was an experience.
Yeah, so China was crazy. We went out to Beijing a couple of months ago and that was just queuing all day long.
Nice. Here they come. I think Vader's got a bit of laryngitis or something, a bit of a...
I don't like that hole there. I'd see him go down that.
It is quite unnerving. It's like stand still and go to the statue.
I think we'll have to ask Vader to stop breathing when we get going.
Do you want to put a microphone in front of him? Cause
I didn't mean it.
he's giving you that look. So have they been in a suit all day? Or have they been able to take the helmet off, a little bit of a breather? Have they been in the helmet all day, or have they been able to... You no idea? Just stalker. Jeez.
I know Dave Prowse, when they were filming, he would always take the helmet off and he wouldn't put it back on until they were ready to film again.
I'm not surprised, because it must...
really found it quite claustrophobic, he did.
Have you worn one of those?
No, because I run the club.
Right.
One of our members, with another guy. They'll wear it for about an hour, to an hour and a half. Cool down.
Wow. And there's no place to really put like a hairdryer or whatever like they did in the old... No.
That's partly why the chin vent was made bigger from A&H to Empire and Return of the Jedi. It was made bigger to just let a bit,
So they can
little bit
breathe.
more air in. Yeah.
Yep. Right, well, let's crack on. And the doors are open so more people can come in. But you've got one of the most seriously impressive filmographies. So what I've done for each of these panels is I was printing out, this person's done this person. And I got to yours and it's like this.
Yeah, 48-year career in the film industry and 70 movies. I started way back in 1968 as an apprentice at Elstree Studios. And I was extremely lucky. I was the only apprentice sculptor ever in the film industry in this country. And I was lucky from the point they turned down 12 before me. And for me, it was lucky 13. And I was told before I ever went for the interview, don't expect too much because they've turned 12 down. But yeah, I waited for a week to get that letter, and it plopped onto the mat, and I picked it up, and yeah, I had the apprenticeship.
So what was it? What was the apprenticeship like? For you?
Well, mainly there was just me and the old guy I trained under in the sculpture workshop. Most of our work was on small British-made films, low-budget films like Digby the Biggest Dog or Boyfriend, and they were making the Avengers and the Saint and television stuff there as well. So that was it. The day I came out of my apprenticeship, I was made redundant. Because I think the way the industry, there wasn't a lot of film work being made, And the old guy that I trained under was making sure that he wasn't the one to go. So I went the day I come out my apprenticeship. But it did me a lot of good, actually, because I went to a company up in London and I spent 3 years doing prestigious work all over London. I'd work on Valve of the Queen and Queen Mother. So, yeah, I mean, I honed my skills up in that 3 years, and it was after 3 years that I got a call. Would I be interested to go back into the film industry to work on a sci-fi movie by the name of Star Wars? They needed some strange characters sculpted, so I said, yeah, I'd love to come back in. Initially, they told me it was just 6 weeks because they didn't know what I could do, and I ended up staying the whole picture, so they were very happy with what I did.
And so what was the process of you go onto this film, the Star Wars, at the time, and you know, was there like a formal interview sort of thing where you sat down, and or was it show me what you can do?
No, it was come in, work on the film. I started off on the Stormtrooper armour. That was in January of 76. The film didn't come out till the following year. So yeah, I started on the Stormtrooper. George Lucas came up once or twice and liked what he was seeing. Then Liz Moore, who had sculpted C-3PO, left the picture at the end of January. She went out to a film Bridge Too Far to be with her boyfriend at the time. And so it was then down to me to do everything that was left on the film. So I worked 76 days without a day off. Following the Stormtrooper armour, I did the finishing work on C-3PO. Then John Barry said to me, will you go down to the wardrobe? There's a little drawing there. We want you to start on a new character. The name of the character is Darth Vader. So I went down to see John Mollo, costume designer, and he had a small line drawing from one angle. They'd moulded Dave Prowse and recreated him in plaster. So that's what I had to sculpt Vader on. So being that I knew I had the mask and the helmet to do first, I cut it off at the shoulders so I could put that onto a sculpting stand. Started with the mask on top, and I knew that I had to put at least 1/4 inch at the lowest point of Vader so that they had a casting thickness so it would fit back on him afterwards. We knew it would go back in, but I had to create the look of Vader and know it would work as well, in the fact that it would go back onto Dave Prowse to wear on as Vader. So I did the mask and then the helmet, refixed the plaster Prowse back onto the shoulders, and did the armour, the shoulder, the chest armour, the shoulder bells, and the shins in the plaster shop. I went down because I'd been up in the art department for the whole period of the film, and they set up a small plaster shop there to do that side of it, but with the big figure of Dave Prowse, I just did the armour down in the main plaster shop, which was a bit more lively because I'd been up in this little workshop up in the art department by myself for months, so going down there and a bit of banter with the plasterers.
Socialise.
Yeah, it was a bit of fun. But yeah, I mean, I loved working on Star Wars, and we had no idea I mean, we were all pessimistic as to what it was going to be as a film. We didn't think it was going to be too much. But then the following year in 77, we, as the crew, all went up to see the crew showing in London, and we were all amazed. I mean, you see that great big spaceship come over, and there was a round of applause. And at the end of the film, it had a standing ovation from the pessimistic crew, who loved the film, and it was obviously beyond its period, beyond its time. It was such a great film. I mean, even when Spielberg went to see some rushes that George Lucas, because they were friends, asked him to go and watch, and all he watched was these like Second World Spitfire and films that he overlaid the Star Wars stuff over. So even he didn't understand what it was about. But it all came to light when we went to see the film, and it was great.
And it made a few quid and became quite a popular movie.
Well, he just had a nice pension fund, didn't he?
Yeah,
£4
definitely.
billion. So, yeah, he's done all right out of it. And what's great about that, in a way, is that Disney will carry on making Star Wars pictures, and they've more than had their money back already, and they'll carry on making them.
I remember somebody saying to me, $4 billion, that's a lot. And I'm like, it's really not. It's not a lot for Star Wars at all.
$4 billion. Well, I was signing out in Celebration out in California last year, and that evening they showed rushes, and they had a BB-8 there and that, and they showed it, and overnight the Disney shares went up £2 billion. So that was half of their money back just by showing those, that bit of film. And they've more than made their money back, and they will make a lot more sense, in the coming years. But Rogue One I did work on, and The Force Awakens I can't actually talk about, but I can say that, and you all probably know that Vader's back in Rogue One, and the Death Star droid and the Stormtroopers, because it apparently finishes 15 minutes before the old A New Hope started. But is there any more questions?
Yeah, I heard somebody'd tipped me off before, said they'd heard you saying downstairs that Rogue One was your final film.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's not true, is it?
Yeah, it's true. Sometimes you have to call it a day, and 48 years in the film industry, working on lots and lots of films. For 10 years I had my own company and workshops at Elstree Studios, so I was doing work on film, price work, and for GoldenEye I did all the big Russian statues back at my workshop, 20-foot figure of Stalin, 17-foot figure of Lenin, another 13-foot figure plus 10-foot high head of Lenin. And
did you do the one that fell on the tank?
No, that was done by the sculptors at the studio. Right. We did all the big, there were two of us did them, all the big statues for the statue park, where they'd ripped them all down in Russia and put them all in this one area. And Bond was standing there, and he had 4 red dots on his chest where the guns were pointed at him, and he realised. But it was for that set, and that was a night set, so we did it all fairly quickly. We did, because it was on a price, we were doing the hours and working hard, and we did all that lot in 10 weeks, the two of us. So it was all large scale stuff. But that was at Leavesden. That was most of the Bonds were made at Pinewood Studios, but that one was at Leavesden. It was the first film that were made there. Then they had made films like Sleepy Hollow, which I did work on. Mortal Kombat was on that, and then they went on to have the Harry Potter franchise at Leavesden, which I worked on 4 of them. Then the, Warner's actually bought Leavesden Studios, and they've expanded it. They've built lots of more, and they're so busy there. And you've got the Harry Potter theme park there. Which I went round I got dragged over there a few weeks ago. A friend come over from Iceland, because I always thought, why do I want to go to a Harry Potter theme? I've seen it all, but it is excellent. It's really good. I was pleased I went.
A friend of mine, we're looking at your filmography, and I have to bring up The Eagle Has Landed, which I believe you did work on.
Yeah, I did. I wasn't on it for long. I was only on it for about 4 weeks, and I went up to Maple Durham, and they'd put some tents up, and they were shooting in the church there. They built a pub and various other things, and the water wheel, they remade that. But I sculpted the 2 figures that were on the tomb, because they were going to be blowing apart and shooting and everything. They couldn't do that in the actual church. So we reproduced the interior of the church in a field nearby. So I was in a big marquee sculpting the figures to represent the figures inside, but I was only there for about 3 or 4 weeks. Then went off on another picture, as you
something
do.
Else, but that is, that's just the bullet points of the filmography, and it's Seriously impressive. Rogue One, Guardians of the Galaxy, Snow White and the Huntsman, Dark Shadows, Harry Potter, Die Another Day, Planet of the Apes, Tomb Raider, Gangster #1. Love that film. What was it you did on Gangster #1?
I was at the studio at the time, and in all the years I was there, because they had knocked the main part of the studio down to build a Tesco's, and I won't go into the politics of all that, but anyway, there was only the television stages left until they built the Lucas stage. And Gangsters 1 was just a small film, really, and I did some for the nightclub.
Right, yeah.
There's some big horse panels that I did. So that was about it for that one.
Okay. There's also Willow, Princess Bride, View to a Kiss. There's a lot of Bond films. Dark Crystal, Clash of the Titans, the original one, which I love.
Yeah.
So that was shot in Malta. Raiders of the Lost Ark, Alien.
No, that was actually shot at Pinewood, but we went out to Malta on it for 6 weeks. I was on the film for 6 months, most of it at Pinewood, and then went out to Malta for 6 weeks, and I thought I was going out there for an easy time, actually.
Yeah, well, I'm guessing you weren't.
Well, I wasn't. Where it turned out, another guy was going to go out, and there was a 25-foot figure, a 10-foot high Assyrian bull with wings that was for the main square, and the 25-foot figure was there. And then there was 2 Assyrian bulls at the archway where all my panels that I'd done back at Pinewood went right the way, and you had a view out to sea with it. And then the guy that was going to go out there broke his leg, and I went out there and busted a gut for 6 weeks. So yeah, I mean, a guy that came out with me had never done any carving before, so it was down to me to do most of it. We did the 25-foot figure in 11 days, and the Assyrian bulls and that. And my wife was pregnant with our first baby, and Ray Harryhausen, who did all the stop frame animation for it, he came out, and he wanted, it was early Assyrian, the style, and he wanted it slightly later period, and he had drapery. I said, sorry, I'm going home. So the other guy got stuck with going up on cherry pickers and draping the big figure. But yeah, I mean, it was good fun. We were outside, so the first thing you do is, like, you were in your shorts and sunglasses, otherwise you'd be snowblind by the end of the day, because that sunshine out there on the polystyrene, it's so bright. So you're working in sunglasses, pasting loads of stuff on, drinking water all day because you're in the open. We didn't have any workshops there. But yeah, I've done 3 films out there now. The first film I did was straight after Alien, and I never actually saw the space jockey in place on the stage, because I went straight out to work on a film called Martian Chronicles. Yeah. It was a film with Rock Hudson, and it was a pretty obscure film, really. It wasn't that great, but I enjoyed being out in Malta for 5 weeks on it. We were just doing, I don't know, it's hard to explain the work, actually. It's just strange alien pieces. But funny enough, Rock Hudson, he used to come past each day and he'd say good morning and that, but he used to sit up there doing crochet with his boyfriend at the time, but it was always kept very quiet that he was gay. It was always put forward that he was macho and sort of had lady friends and that, but it wasn't the case. But is there anything else?
There is ton. I mean, have you seen the Martian Chronicles, Bob? I would have thought. There you go. That's one from my friend.
I mean, things like Indiana Jones, they were quite interesting. I worked on all 3 of them. Not so much Raiders of the Lost Ark. I did. There were 2 of us that did the Lost Ark, Ark of the Covenant. I also did on that. You know the scene where he's down in the snake pit with the big Anubis figures there? Mm-hmm. Well, I did the Cobra from when they shoot towards Harrison Ford. So you get the shot from where they shoot behind his head, and there's a live Cobra. You see it moving around, and it's behind the glass, sheet of glass. And they got away with that because they were shooting towards light. But when they shot back the other way, they couldn't have the glass sheet there, and they wasn't going to chance Harrison Ford with a cobra in front, so I sculpted a cobra for the shot going back the other way. But I found that The Temple of Doom was a nicer film to work on from the work we did. I did things like the heart that they pluck out for the sacrifice, and it's pumping. I think they cut that out initially.
Yeah, it was trimmed
the
in
film
the UK,
here, and then I think it's brought back in later. But they asked me to go to Harefield Heart Hospital to see a surgeon there. So I went in and we were discussing what was the best heart that I could get, and he said, well, the primates are the best heart you can get, which I said, I can't do that, I can't. So we settled in the end for a sheep's heart. Right. So they bought me in a sheep's heart on the film. I also had a plastic model that they used in the hospitals that I could use for getting the veins coming off in the right sections. And then I used the sheep's heart to get all the detailing to make it look really realistic. And as I was leaving the room, he said, oh, by the way, he said, I'm doing open heart surgery tomorrow. Would you like to come and have a look?
And what I'd be like...
I said, no, thanks. It wouldn't be any good to me, because I could hardly ask you to hold his heart on his chest while I take a few pictures, do a few sketches.
I'm a sculptor, I don't want to see that.
So, no, I didn't do that. But, I mean, some of the other work I did on that, there was when he was in the temple where the heart was taken out, he goes along a balcony and then it's all broken away, and he's got his whip and he puts it around an elephant trunk. And then he swings down to the ground. Well, I carved that. That was about a 10-foot high elephant's head. There was a 14-foot python I did where the scene where they're around the fire and there's little baby elephants there, and the snake comes down out the tree and it comes down onto her shoulder. And she was actually terrified by snakes. That's why she wouldn't have a snake near her, and I had to sculpt that one. And then she grabs it when it's on the shoulder and chucks it. And we stopped it on the actual film on the computer. And as it lands, then you can tell it's not a live snake because it's just lifeless.
I mean, how long would it take on average to sculpt a python like that?
I had 2 days.
Wow.
Well, I mean, I am fairly quick at what I do anyway, because the original Darth Vader, I was about a month on it just by myself. And then when it was resculpted for the Sith, there were 6 of them on it for 2 months. So I'm quick. And really, by that time, they had so much money in the franchise that they probably played about a bit as well. So I wouldn't put it down to the fact that I'm faster than 6 people. It's just that they had more money and could play about, but they probably, I'd say I am quick anyway.
I mean, looking at your filmography, what was it like working on the Jim Henson project, Dark Crystal?
It was enjoyable. It was very, very different. We were doing mainly the stuff in the background. There was a creature shop set up. And in fact, it was the first time that they ever had an animatronic department as such, where they had it all under the same roof. They'd had sculptors, people doing the moulds, the painting, everything was under one roof. Whereas in the past, you'd have the sculpting department, you'd have the plastering department, you'd have special effects, and it would go around the departments and it would all be done as a finish. So that was the first film, Dark Crystal, that was all done. But a lot of the set work and the thrones and all sorts, it was very interesting work to actually do. Funny enough, I got to work a lot closer with Frank Oz on Little Shop of Horrors that I worked on later with Audrey, the plant, and I did different things like the dentist scene. There was a dog with rotten teeth, so I had to sculpt the whole, like the dog's head. They put hair on it, and I sculpted it in all rotten teeth, and they used that just for a picture. Was it scene other than the picture? I'm not sure. I can't remember now. And there was all sorts of the set. I do architectural heads and all sorts for that. And they did have a scene at the end that was cut out, where Aldrey was going huge. And, you know, it was like trains pulling them off the rails and all sorts. But when they showed it out in America, the public didn't like it, so they cut it out the film.
I think it is a deleted scene on one of the, be it a Blu-ray or a DVD.
But they spent a lot of money doing that, and it was just all deleted.
Public slap.
Yeah. Well, I suppose it's more important that people like it and word of mouth, and it makes a lot more money. That's what we're interested in.
Definitely. But if anybody's any questions for this, Annette has one.
What's the sculpture that you're most proud of?
I get that asked all the time, and I find it also difficult to answer because there's so much work. I mean, Vader's become iconic. It's known the world over. Even China, we were there a couple of months ago, and they're mad for it there. I suppose in a way Vader was probably proud of, but I don't necessarily think it's the best work I've done.
What's the best work?
Now that's hard. There's so much nice work that I've had to do over the years. I mean, even one that was cut out, I don't know if you remember the opening sequence in Temple of Doom where they're in the Obi-Wan club. Mm-hmm. And the very opening sequence is on the Paramount Mountains, and they come out from that, and there's a dragon on the gong, and then the gong rolls off, and there's firing and everything. Yeah. Well, I had 2 weeks, and I sculpted a dragon that went right around the whole gong, and the Paramount Mountains were in the middle. And I was really pleased with that job, and then the art department come down and said, we've got the scale of the mountains wrong to pan out from. So having spent 2 weeks doing that, a job that I was really happy with, the dragon looked lovely, I had 2 days to do what you see on screen. And that's the way it goes in the film industry sometimes.
Is that a hard thing to get used to, when you go, ta-da, it's brilliant, and you go, no. Oh.
You accept it.
Do you take it personally, or is it just like, that's the nature
of
the business?
No, it is what it is. And you go with, films like Harry Potter, I did these in the atrium. I did the really ornate fireplaces that they walk into the Ministry of Magic, and there's 17 of them. So that was really seen. It's there also in the museum now. There was the goblin on the big plinth where you've got the centaur, and there's a big female figure that worked on a bit as well. But I did these really ornate gates, gold gates, and they weren't seen. They weren't on film. So you just accept that's what happens. You go in, you're professional about the work you do, you work the best of your ability in the time you have, and you accept what happens. If your work is seen right in front of the camera, then great. And if it isn't, sometimes it's a little bit out of focus because they're focusing it on the actors. Again, that you accept it. In fact, a lot of the time I will go and watch a film I've worked on. I get so carried away with the film itself that I forget to look for my work. Wow. I might see it later if I look again, see it again.
Okay. I think we have an audience question now.
Got a question from the audience?
What's your preferred thing to sculpt out of?
Sorry, I didn't get that.
What's your preferred thing to sculpt out of? Preferable medium.
Did you get
that? Which is your preferred way to sculpt, was it?
No.
Oh, material. Yeah, what is your preferred material to sculpt out of? Thank you.
I'd rather work in clay. You work in clay for the finer details, or if they're going to mould something, cast a lot out. But often, films like Goldeneye, all the big statues, we carve them in polystyrene, because then you don't have to mould and cast them. The polystyrene is a finished job as such. They might put something on to texture it, and you can paint polystyrene to look like bronze, stone, or anything you want it to be. So once it's painted, you would accept that it is stone. Like those statues. Even the 25-foot figure in Clash of the Titans, again, they all look like stone. There was another thing, Willow, the Dogs of Death, and they, funny enough, they came up to Wales to shoot that in. I had to age them all down, so you sculpt them all to look perfect. And then there was a wind. It was in a valley on like a castle, big castle, and the winds were supposed to come down the alley from the valley from one way. So you aged one side more than the other. All of them were aged from that direction. They were all carved in polystyrene again because you haven't got a mould and cast them. So I had 4 at 12 foot and then 2 at 8 foot high, and I was carving them in about 2.5 days.
Wow. I mean, you've written a book as well.
2 books.
Have you got these books downstairs?
Yeah, they're downstairs. There's the original one that takes you up to 88, which says how I got into the film, a little bit about childhood, and then how I got into the film industry, Star Wars and some other pictures, a court case that I got involved with for Lucas. So that takes you up to 88, and then the other book brings you up to date. So, but I don't think there'll be another one. Yeah, it doesn't come easy. I mean, a lot of people have said how good the books are. They've really enjoyed, and some people have said they've read them 3 or 4 times. I actually quite enjoyed reading it myself, but long time after, when you've got over writing them.
Yeah. I mean, what was it like writing them? Because you've got a wealth of information to choose from.
Well, my wife wrote them with me, so we sat down at the computer, and some days would go well and you'd get stuff down and you'd be pleased with the day. Other days you'd get half a page and
you can't write come back
and
tomorrow.
You've been arguing about it all day, what sounds best or whatever, and I forgot the question. What was the question?
Yeah, just basically what it was like writing them.
Yeah. So it was something that I wanted to do and that I talked about. And funny enough, we have a house out in Florida, and we were out there in the winter. And I said, you know, that I'd like to get down to writing that book sometime. And my wife, Lindsay, said, well, we'll start now. We just started writing the first chapter out there, and that got once you've actually started on it, you've set yourself the goal to do it. Yeah. Then we carried on and finished it, and then taking it up to 1988, where we thought, well, now we've done that, we might as well go to the end.
What was the reason to break it off at 88?
Nothing more than that we felt that we had enough there for a book, and it would have been a huge book and cost a lot more money per book. And I don't know whether it had been sellable. I don't know, but that's what we decided, to go to 88 and then do the rest at another time. It took us 5 years to get round to doing that, mind you.
And what's the cost of the books now? I'm asking for me because I'm going to come down and get them after.
They're £20, and that's signed and personalised.
Nice.
Which is a good deal, really, because it's
interesting
£15 for a photograph.
Definitely.
So you get to read a book that is quite enjoyable, and you've got lots of photographs, and you get it signed and personalised.
Exactly. I will be down after the next panel to get them. So, any questions? There we go. Yep.
Can you speak up, please?
He'll get a mic. It's coming.
The new Star Wars films, Disney, are they continuing to the books, or are they going off books? Because I've read some of the older books which they want to do the films of, and I've heard that they aren't continuing with the books.
Apparently the Disney they can go back to the books and use bits of information if they wish, and then it becomes canon. Yeah, but at the minute they're not basing any of the new films off stuff.
Thank you for answering that question.
No problem. So, any other questions for Brian? This gentleman here.
Hi. I was going to ask, like you said before, which you're the most proud of, but instead, is there any film that you didn't get asked to do where you wished you had done, or saw something and thought, I could have done that better?
I've always accepted it as it comes. There's no point in wishing that you'd done a film. You haven't done it, and that's and that's it. And I've been lucky enough to work on so many good films. I can't feel bad about not working on something. I did get asked what was my favourite film, what's the best work and all that. And I can definitely, and it's hard to say which is the best, but I can definitely tell you which was the worst. And I'll tell you, Superman. I hated it. And I'll tell you why. It changed studios 4 times. It started off at Bray. It went to Italy. It moved from Italy to Shepperton. And then it folded for 2 months and moved to Pinewood Studios. They changed director, designer 3 times, and they changed the script many times. And I worked there for 6 months at Shepperton, and every single bit of work I did was scrapped. Each designer would scrap the previous designer's work. And it wasn't until I went back on it at Pinewood that I actually did work for the film. But the work that I was doing was for the Fortress of Solitude, all the great big ice shards. And I was in the bond stage at the bottom of the tank, and it was winter, and there's an underground stream there. So we had 2 inches of water I was working, and I've got variacs, so I was getting shocks all the time, and it was just awful.
Not pleasant. Can you go back and watch Superman and go, it's a good film, or does it just bring back the painful memories?
To be honest with you, I've not watched it. I don't want to watch it.
Not interested.
No. But anyway, I thought I'd let you know that.
That's a very interesting story, yeah. Any questions? That's supposed to be a fascinating person to chat to. Forget the audience today, I'll just talk to you all the time. But no, I think it is sort of sad that you say Rogue One's going to be your final one, but,
I don't feel sad about it.
Oh, no, I feel happy that you got filmography.
I mean, at the moment,
Amazing.
we are travelling all over the world, meeting great fans that appreciate the work I've done, and I've got nothing to prove. And we're having a great time, enjoying it, travelling. So no, I don't feel bad about it.
No. Okay. But
feel quite fulfilled in all the work. I've done so much work that, I'm happy not to sculpt now.
I think you're next, but you should write another book called From Digby to Rogue One.
Yeah.
It's about as far apart. I mean, what did you do on Digby? Just
things like the dog when he was huge. They had a shot from inside the mouth out, so we did the teeth, the tongue, and so it was like the whole inside of the mouth and various other things on it.
Nice.
It's a long time ago, actually. 47 or 8 years.
It's one of my childhood films, that one. I remember watching it years and years ago. So it was good. But no, thank you very, very much for everything you've done. Half of your filmography is my childhood.
Yeah.
So
thank you. It was a pleasure doing it.
And I'll be down to check your books out and
thank you
and read them. But no, thank you very much.
Cheers.
Rounds of applause.
Thank you.
Absolutely fascinating.
Cheers.
It was good. Should we get you back downstairs?
Right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.